Good afternoon, everyone. That was a fascinating presentation by Anne-Marie. Thanks a lot. Anne-Marie has a beautiful first name, which is French, but she doesn't have this subtle touch of French accent that is barely noticeable, but that you'll have to enjoy with me for the rest of the afternoon. So, when we see all these innovations that Anne-Marie presented to us, I think one of the key questions that comes to mind is, okay, great, that's fascinating to a number of you, that's frightening to a number of us as well, but where do we start? How do we approach things? What's the starting point? And that's really what I want to focus on, which is, okay, how do we adapt our organizations to be able to make the most out of all these new opportunities that Anne-Marie presented and many others that we all have in mind. I just want to start with a small story. In 1998, I joined the world-leading consumer electronics company as a young marketing executive. And we had this little issue, which is that the guy who had hired me, the woman actually who had hired me, was on a sick leave for a couple of weeks. And so here I am, a new marketing guy, freshly graduated from business school, and they don't know what to do with me. And so my boss's boss, who was the CMO, thought, well, let's give him a project, a research project. Scratched his head and thought, oh, maybe, you know what, we should start thinking of this flat display technology. Being the world leader in cathode ray tube, it might make sense. And if it doesn't keep you busy for the next few weeks, you can still take a look at a digital still camera, because maybe one day it will challenge our camera business. Interesting questions that they had at the time. What's quite fascinating is that at the same time, there was a reason why they didn't care so much about flat display or digital still camera. They were interesting topics, but they were interesting to the point that a young marketing graduate school guy could take for a couple of weeks, and that was it. The reason was they were focused on what they believed could be a game changer. The world's first digital music player using the MP3 technology. And so because they were focused on that, they thought, well, you know what, the flat display trend, the digital still camera trend, they are not really our top priority. But let's look at that on the side. Well, you know the end of the story. It took like 5 years for the world-leading cathode ray tube manufacturers to simply get out of business. Okay. And actually what's also interesting is that on the digital still camera side, as we speak, we're already past this, meaning our iPhones and all our mobile phones have already disrupted the technology that at the time was maybe about to disrupt our industry. Or maybe you may recognize this guy. 2 years later, that's to tell you how much better we were. He came up with a digital music player, and we thought, you know what, we've been there. We've launched it 2 years ago. It's not really working. Well, maybe he had something slightly different. So that just in case you thought my initial story was a happy ending story, we fell miserably on digital music player as well. How encouraging does that sound? Quite exciting, right? What are my key takeaways from this series of sad stories that we have here? First thing is pretty obvious, expect the unexpected, that's the most likely scenario. But what is most important is not to be able to be the first one to catch the trend that is coming. What is most relevant is to understand the world, the economy, and the business models in which you live so that you're able to adapt. Being first to market is not necessarily a key success factor. I mean, when you think about this guy, he has not been the first to market on digital music player, because now you know I was. For the record. He has not been first to market on a mobile phone, because you all remember that when Apple came up with a mobile phone, everybody was thinking, well, you know, this market is already very fast growing. So what's important is the company culture and how prepared you are to embrace digital transformation. I know a lot of companies that have sort of randomly run into a key idea. Maybe we were one of them. I'm not aware of any company that has randomly executed properly. So let's look at some of the key trends that we have to live with right in today's world. The first one is speed. we live in a world of very high speed. The economy and the economic environment in which we live is a highway on which we advance at a speed that is increasing dramatically. Let me just share with you a couple of very simple facts supporting that. It has taken 40 years since the creation of the first TCP/IP protocol to connect 2.5 billion individuals to the internet. Okay? It's gonna take another 36 months to connect the next 2.5 billion people. Talking of an acceleration, I think that's pretty obvious. But when we talk about these general type of figures, it's always hard to connect that to our own industry. Okay, we live in a world that moves very fast, but does it really impact the theatrical industry? Actually, we have been through some dramatic transformation, but compared to the path of the digital transformation, the digital cinema transformation has been quite slow. It has been a great achievement. We are all very proud about it, but it's not something that has happened over an 18-month time period. So let me show you an example of a transformation that has taken place recently and that's still taking place in our industry, in China. That's the adoption of online ticketing. The first, if my readings are correct, the first online ticketing website in China was launched in 2010. In 2015, we're at 70% of online ticketing, going towards 80%. And this has happened at the same time. Let's bear in mind that on the domestic market, over the past 15 years, we have reached a level for which there is no official figure, but my gut feeling is that it's probably in the range of 10 to 15%. Okay, so that's a very interesting element. And what do we learn from that? Well, what's interesting is, of course, the Chinese market is not the US market, very different. But this change has been made possible by an acceleration brought by leading digital media companies. The likes of Facebook and Twitter, that are called WeBedia, Tencent, Alibaba, Baidu, they are the ones who have disrupted the online ticketing market in China, making this acceleration possible. Well, it turns out that on the fast-growing market, this disruption was probably a good news, although it comes with its challenges. But what happens if we get disrupted on more mature market at the same speed? Because these things happen all the time to a number of industries. So, and by the way, I was attending this morning a very interesting discussion, panel discussion, I'm sure a number of you were there, about collaboration between distributors, studios, and exhibitors. And I heard this very good comment, and I cite my sources, but Amber Stepper from National Amusement was highlighting, I think she was absolutely right, how critical timing is, and the fact that any additional delay in the adoption of a faster path on the technology side is hurting us, whether we realize it or not. We are on this highway that's going very, very fast, and when you don't go fast enough, the next car starts by honking at you, and the next step is probably at some point is going to hit you. So if we try to understand the model, the business model in the world in which we live, I think there is one key notion that you may have heard repeatedly, so I'm sorry if I'm just repeating things you know, but I think that's very important. We live in a platform economy. The environment in which we live is made of companies that have changed the role of the game. The companies we refer to as the GAFAs, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, they do not sell a product or a service. What they have done, what they have been successful at doing, is to create an ecosystem that is very adaptable, that constantly integrates new products, new services, and that has constantly a relationship with the clients, with its employees, with its partners, with all the stakeholders, empowered by a digital technology, and that's a win-win technology, that's a win-win relationship. So the name of the game here is create an ecosystem rather than launch a product. So if we try to see what that means in terms of value creation, let's look. I'm not sure you can read it perfectly, but that's a good test anyway. If I look here at the top 15 listed platforms throughout the world, public companies, the market cap of the combined market cap of these 15 companies is $2.6 trillion. If you add to that the market cap of the so-called unicorns which are all the startups, the private startups that pretty much all rely on the ecosystem of a platform, represent $500 billion. And so this group of these public companies, these private companies, by 2020 will represent approximately 25% of the entire world economy. And what is very striking about these companies is when you think about it, they are all companies that have an open business model made of a huge ecosystem each of them have been able to create. So that completely disrupts the traditional business model we are used to live in. In a traditional business model, we are a linear business model. A producer of goods or services delivers product to a consumer that pays for that, and that's pretty simple. That's pretty much the world we live in. In a platform, each time a consumer or a supplier interacts with the platform, this interaction creates value in different ways. So let's take a concrete example in our own industry. Each time a consumer buys a ticket online, on your website, on Fandango, on Movie Ticket, on any platform that exists in your respective countries, the value the consumer creates for the platform is not only, of course, it starts with the value of the ticket you're selling, but it goes far beyond that, because at the same time, this consumer provides data, and the very fact that this consumer interacts with the platform is creating in itself value for the platform. So this is just a radical change when you think about it, is we are switching from the economy of the information to the platform economy, where data are not a good you need to own and retain. Data are what you have to interact with other players and to create and participate in other ecosystems and to create your own ecosystems. People who have been very successful with those are sometimes referred to by the old legacy companies as barbarians. They come into your world and they disrupt it completely. And there are some sad stories of barbarians. Let me take one of those. I've learned this expression, lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice. Thanks, Daniel. It took me a while to repeat this sentence. It's really hard for me. But I want to apply this sentence that I won't try to repeat to the hotel industry. Well, this is a counterexample because really lightning struck twice on the hotel industry. In 2004, there was the first massive disruption, which was the emergence of Booking.com, Expedia, Hotels.com, and in the years following this new business model around transaction, depending on the country, somewhere between 15 and 23% of the margin of the leading hotel companies in the world has disappeared. Massive transformation with companies that were newcomers to the industry have disrupted the business model dramatically. By 2012, finally, the hotel industry was getting there, was recovering, was rebuilding their margin. And here comes this second barbarian, Airbnb. This company that pretends that you can just simply put people in apartments or houses rather than in hotels. Well, today, Airbnb sell 1 million nights per day, which is more than the combined number of nights sold by the top 5 hotel companies in the world. And there is always this story that a couple of years ago, the boss of Airbnb met with the boss of Airbnb. The boss of Airbnb met with the boss of one of the key hotel chains in the world, who didn't take him seriously at all. That's the problem and the challenge with the barbarians, is that you do not always recognize them. Does that mean that old companies, legacy companies, incumbents, are just condemned to failures and to miss the digital music players and the future of television? Not at all. I want to take the example of a very impressive digital champion, which is a 180-year-old digital champion called GE. I find it very interesting that GE is so successful today in the digital economy, and when you analyze the roots of that, I remember, and I'm sure a number of you remember, that in the years 2000, in the middle of the hype of the internet economy, GE was making all the headlines of all the business publications because they had created a number of key concepts, especially destroy your business. The whole notion of destroy your business was each business unit manager had to come up with scenarios and new ideas to anticipate the fact that their business was going to die. It was a pretty bullish way to approach change. Second thing they did is each business unit manager had a mentor. And this mentor was a 20 to 30-year-old guy. I'm a bit lost with the millennials, Gen X, Z, Y. I don't know where that would be, but let's say a 20-year-old guy who would mentor a business unit manager to challenge him or challenge her on the way they run their business. And I find it very interesting that when it comes to predicting the future, adapting for the future, GE in the years 2000 was wrong. They thought their business was about to be transformed in the next 2 years. They were absolutely wrong. It took much longer, but the very fact that GE 15 years ago, in terms of corporate culture, had embraced the idea that we needed to be ready for change and to have this challenge, manage this mentoring, this input from the younger generation is certainly an absolutely key success factor in the way this company has been able to adapt. This is not a coincidence. So if we try to derive some key lessons of, okay, all these companies, the new ones or the old ones like GE that do right and that take the full benefit of the digital economy, let's identify a couple of very simple things they do right, and let's see how we could apply that to our own business. The first thing they do right is they have gotten rid of this mentality, the silo mentality, which is something very typical in large companies. And actually preparing this presentation, I was thinking, in our own industry, what are the silos? Well, you know what? If you're a cinema chain, maybe each of your location is a silo. And what is a silo? It's a place that is sort of a self-sustained, that works on its own, that is autonomous, and traditionally we tend to value a lot of autonomy and say, okay, you're responsible for your movie theater location, make the most out of it. That might be the beginning of silo mentality. In the digital world, the employees you have in each of your locations, they do not belong to location ABC. They belong to the same company. They belong to the same organizations, and you have a lot of tools available to make it possible for them to work as real team. There are a lot of virtual teams. The magazine I run, people always ask us where we are based. Well, I have no clue. Some of the employees who work with me, I don't even know where they are based. And that works great. So think of all the tools that can help you build project teams that are not driven by who works where, but who has which skills, who has which know-how. The second element is we need to switch from vertical companies to horizontal companies. You may recognize the guy that you have seen in the slide before. It's called Mark Zuckerberg, and given the fact that he's the CEO of Facebook, I think he deserves a nice office like this one in the middle of an open space surrounded by his peers. That's what his office looks like in Menlo Park in a headquarters that is not a tower, but that's a campus, horizontal, completely horizontal, not vertical. That's one of the key elements. And to make this horizontal transformation possible, just want to give you one example of a very practical tool. Who in this room uses Slack? Who in this room has never even heard the name Slack? So, I was really afraid, and I was thinking, well, you know, if everybody raising their hand, I just have to leave. It would be ridiculous to explain anything. Thank you. Slack is a corporate messaging system, meaning that's a chat inside that you implement within your organization. And that replaces pretty much a lot of the email exchange. Let me give you a couple of very simple facts about Slack. Slack has 2.3 million daily users. Slack was created in 2013. The average amount of time of Slack users is 5 hours and 30 minutes every week. The average reduction in professional emails that Slack users see is nearly 50%. I don't have any shares in Slack. I wish I had, but I don't. Slack has 300 apps available using Slack right now on the market, and 900,000 integrations have been implemented with Slack. Slack is like really the archetype of this platform that I was talking about. And by the way, Slack has a market cap today that's getting close to $4 billion. Is it a good idea to replace email by chat? And why is it good? Well, number one, in terms of dynamic of project management, there are a lot of good reasons to think that it's a good idea. And I've implemented it recently within our company, and within a matter of weeks, it really picked up very dramatically. That's very impressive. But what is interesting is one of the reluctance that I have, because yes, I'm not a digital native. One of the reluctance I have is, you know what, email, that's more relevant, that's more practical in the way to organize the work. That's not true. Email is not practical, it's not more relevant, it's just I'm more used to emails. And so that really triggers an interesting question, which is it because the managers, the executives, the CEOs do not like this new trend that is coming for instant messaging, for messenger type of interaction, that we should not do that? You know what? It might be Slack, it might be Facebook for businesses, it may be other applications, but one thing that we can take for granted is that the messaging approach is replacing the email, and it's very easy to check it. I check it with my daughter, but I also check it with the 20-year-olds who were telling me, no, you know what, I'm really, really regular about emails. I check them most of the time, at least once a day. You check your email once a day because you're really, really regular. Okay, that's interesting. That's a good learning. So I think what's important is the messaging trend is going to transform your business. Not only because you're going to reduce your email using Slack, but because there are new trends that will affect you that use the chat system. Facebook today, as we speak, has a very important meeting, the F8, where they do a lot of announcements. And let me tell you a couple of very simple announcements that they are making, so that it's as if you were in F8, although you can watch movies, which is much better. One of the key announcements is Facebook for Business is growing, which is a Slack-like and a Slack feeder potentially. That's one of the key priorities. They believe that that's one of the areas where they're going to be able to support the business. The other area that might be maybe not such a great news for all of you, but that will force you to transform your business, is that there is a huge focus on payments through apps, through messaging. And by the way, that's pretty much the trend that has transformed the Chinese online ticketing. So maybe you're not familiar with chat, maybe you're not familiar with the Facebook Messenger, but this is going to transform your business. And so the best way to get ready is not to say, okay, I'll adapt. Use it for yourself. Use it within your organizations. Ask the 20 to 30-year-old in your organization why they don't like emails, and rather than educating them to use our technology of email, let them educate you on how to use this technology that they believe are much easier, much more instinctive than our old email technologies. That sounds weird to see, for me to say old email technology. Last thing I want to say about Slack. Slack is also a perfect illustration of agility, and you need to be very agile. The founder of Slack created two companies. He created and sold Flickr, billion-dollar company, created and not yet sold Slack, $3 billion company. And in both cases, these are stories of failures. In both cases, he was trying to build a video game company, and in both situations, he realized it was not going to fly. And they looked at what they had built to create these video games, and in one case they had created an image exchange technology, and say, well, let's give a try for that. That became Flickr. And the next time, they say, wow, this glitch, very ambitious game startup that had raised a lot of money was not going to fly. And what did they think? Well, we have this internal messaging system that we've put together that's pretty clever, and that has become Slack. So the ability to pivot the company is a very interesting example, I think, of how lean and agile companies work. The other very key element, and I think that in terms of transformation, that's one that's hard to swallow for some of us, is you need to be ready to build to fail, whatever it takes. What we mean by that, I like this picture. That's not me. What is case you wonder. What that means is that we have this culture of being perfectionist, of saying, you know what, my app is not ready, my website is not ready, I don't want to release until it's really perfect. Well, let me share a quote that I really like. It's from the founder of LinkedIn. If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And I'm not just saying that because we have a new version of our website today. So what that means is there is this whole motion for lean and digital ready company to embrace transformation based on the MVP concept, minimum viable product. Don't wait to get to the market, don't wait to be completely ready. Try, iterate, pivot, close things that don't work, but innovate permanently on the short term. Because if you spend 2 years to design the perfect website, by the time it's online, maybe it's perfect, but it's outdated already. Last set of comments I want to share with you regarding how to get ready for this transformation is a couple of very simple notions. The first 4 notions. The first notion is that the signal comes from the top. To all the CEOs in this room, if you are not convinced of the necessity and urgency to transform your business and embrace this digital transformation, it's going to be a challenge. And to all of you who are not CEOs of your company, if you have, your top priority should be to convince your boss to give clear message that digital transformation is at the heart of what we do. And in this world, I think that's a key element. You need to send clear signal. You need to challenge the way you work and interact with your younger employees. There are a lot of younger employees in cinemas. Do we make the most out of all their knowledge? That's a very important question. MBAs are very useful in your organization, but there is something even more relevant than MBAs, that's MBWAs. Management by walking around. You need to walk in your theaters, you need to see what the young employees have to tell you, and you need to let them participate to your ecosystem. Probably the most relevant people to challenge the way you embrace the digital transformation of your business are your young employees, because they most of the time are all passionate about movies. So we are talking of young men and women passionate about movies and who can teach you a lot about digital transformation. Leverage that, use that. The second notion, after the turn from the top, is learning and training. You need to learn constantly, you need to train. There are a lot of new tools that are available. I don't know if you have heard about the massive online open courses that are available online. Nowadays, you don't train people the same way we used to train them 10 years ago. You have Periscope, and you have the MOOCs, and you have a Facebook Live. So all these tools make it possible to organize training across all your organization in a simple way, regardless of the physical location of XYZ. So that's a key element. The third element in the transformation that's absolutely critical is the right management of timing, short-term versus long-term. You know, some of the innovation projects that you have are long-term, meaning 1 year, 3 years. Let's take the example of opening a new location. It takes 1 year, 2 years, and maybe your next big innovation is this great state-of-the-art location you're gonna open in 18 months, and that will have all the new digital features. But you know what? That's not enough. You cannot keep your team motivated and excited about the digital transformation if they have to wait for another 18 months to see things happen. You need quick wins. You need small projects at the same time as the big project. So you cannot just say, well, I'll wait until I fix this big element in my ERP, until I fix this big choice on my POS to change anything on my other apps or website. That's not the same timing. You need to show clear sign that there is short-term and long-term, and short-term is how you create the momentum. The last element is in this culture of the platform, we need to live in the world of open data, of open sharing of data. The most obvious way to do that is through APIs. APIs are the way you share data with other stakeholders, exactly what I was describing earlier on about the model of the platform. What's at the heart of the data exchange is openness, transparency. At this stage, I could have elaborated about digital security. I won't. The key element is that digital security is key, but it is part of a broader focus you have to build, you have to develop around digital trust. It's essential to have security, meaning to be able to trust people who interact with you and be trustworthy to the people who interact with you. But it's not only securing data, but it's respecting the rules of the games, being transparent, announcing things. So you have to be trustworthy to all your partners. And to illustrate this question of the openness of all your digital ecosystem, just want to highlight the notion of hackathon. Second test of the day, who knows what a hackathon is? Okay, I don't have a definition here. I should have written that. A hackathon is a gathering of developers, coders that you bring into a room, give your tools and let them play with that. Give them your APIs, let them create new features, new products with that. It's a contraction of hackers and marathons, a marathon of hackers. I've not talked a lot about France today, I'll just give you one hint. The French tax authority, which does not have the reputation of being the most modern institution in the world, has just recently launched their first hackathon. And the goal was not to crack the code of tax to avoid paying tax, which is national sport in France. But the name of, no, you can't clap on that. The name of the game was, we have created this new online tax payment. Guys, come in the room and develop all the new services and applications to make the most out of it. A couple of years ago, Fandango organized a hackathon. I think you all need to think in terms of when you create an ecosystem, create a hackathon to go with that, to let your users, your employees come up with the right ideas and projects to make the most out of what you have developed. And maybe there will be a ton of crappy idea, and maybe you'll just realize that you were just missing the elephant in the room. That's true, right? Is this whole innovation concept mainly for the big multinational companies, for the top 10 exhibition companies listed in a very good box office magazine? No. I think it's very essential to consider that all players and all exhibitors, the single location exhibitor, the smallest independent chains, have to put a lot of emphasis on the digital transformation, because it's a massive opportunity for them. It's also a massive challenge, because in order to embrace that, they need to get together, they need to work as a group. That's what we're trying to do with the Indie Marketing Coalition, bringing all the indie theater in the country together to build new tools, platforms that will help them embrace this culture of change. You need, and I'm talking here to the smaller exhibitors, you need to be part of this ecosystem. You need to join forces to participate in this new game. I was mentioning earlier some of the key announcements of Facebook today. This messenger feature for businesses is targeted specifically at small businesses. That means you'll have the same way on Facebook you can address one of your friends, you will be addressed by your consumers if you are identified as a small business on Facebook. So there is really an urgency to adopt this digital transformation mentality. And you see, it's not about being an expert at technology. It's not about being the best futurist in the room. I think we have seen her already. The key element is about people. It's about creating a culture that tells your employees that whatever the evolution is going to be, we are ready to embrace it. And even if we're wrong, with like this tattoo that we put on our arm, we'll be able to fix that. And it's so much better to fail by innovating than wait and not innovate. Your ability to understand the changing customer is key, but the real deciding factor in this era of intelligence is your ability as a company to evolve its corporate culture to embrace these changes. With that, I think I'm done with my time. The good news for those of you who have accepted to stay during this whole afternoon, especially with my long speech, is that we offer food after that. And so, this being said, I want to be honest, there is food waiting that WEBEDIA will be happy to offer you for this cocktail party. If you have one or two comments, questions that you can't wait to make, you're more than welcome. If you're just here for food, why don't you go? Thank you very much. I've spoken too much about food, so I'll be very happy with the whole WEBEDIA team to join you in the lobby to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.